Good evening and welcome to the 37th episode of Voice of Silence. Let me begin with a little account from my own life. I have completed deep spiritual and psychological work on myself recently with a guide, of course. And towards the end of almost 2 months, the guide and my counselor, he took me through a process mentally, of course, where I was supposed to go into my mind and literally remove weeds of things or thoughts that were hindering my growth. And I was to replant those areas with things that came after the therapy from within me that will help my growth and in general becoming a good, not good person, a better version of myself. Now, why am I saying this is because our next speaker, Anshu Arora, is going to be the voice of Nemawashi, which is a Japanese term which she will explain, of course. But I thought, how coincidental. And on that note, let's please welcome Anshu Arora with a round of applause. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anshu.
Well,
Thank you for agreeing to do this.
oh, it's a pleasure. It's not nothing about agreement. I'm sure I'm going to gain even more than what I'll be able to give. So it's an honor. Thank you.
That's kind of you. And it is true. I think when we meet people and we interact, then it's always a two-way street. Yeah. You learn from everybody that you meet. So Anshu, you are a very accomplished professional. Please, let's talk about that first. Because everything that I read about you, you have accomplished a lot professionally. Would you like to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think it was very early in life that I saw this sticker up on somewhere which said, "Choose a job you love and you will never have to work a day in your life." And I think that got etched in my brain, and that's where I thought I'd have to pick up something that I love to do, which I would not be tired of doing all day long. So yes, I'm a C-suite facilitator. I work with the CEOs and the CXOs. I coach the executives for progressive roles. I am also an executive coach in terms of various other aspects of work life. I'm a speaker coach as well, and there's a Japanese style of presenting which is called pecha kucha. So you get to say what you have to say in 6 minutes and 40 seconds flat, and through a slide where you have no text. So you go about telling your whole story in just 6 minutes and 40 seconds, and I'm a coach. I coach people onto the pecha kucha style of conversing and delivering their ideas. Besides that, I think what works best for both of us is that I'm a certified storyteller. So that's what I do. All of this comes together, and that's what I do for a living. I'm happy that I can earn my bread out of this.
It's amazing. And I understand when you say that. I found that calling now. Now I would say, past decade, where I wonder sometimes why am I being paid. There are times when the client calls, "Madam, you forgot to take your payment." Really, yes. I'm not kidding. Or my family reminds me, "And did you get the money?" I'm like, "Oh shit," that's when you call. Because I get that.
Yes.
And isn't that amazing?
Yes, creative satisfaction, I realized, has to be the fuel that gets you going, and I think this is what it is.
And because we spend so much time working, let's face it, a lot of time we're doing something. Might as well let that doing be something that you love. Isn't it? So moving on, Anshu, give us a little glimpse for the audience and even the ones that are going to be watching this on YouTube, a little glimpse to your background, from your childhood maybe to your marriage, so that we understand your story and can relate with it better.
I think I can summarize this into 3 broad phases, Kanika. Of course, I think I had a wonderful childhood until I was 12. Of course, after that as well. I was a good, pampered, loved child. I was a celebrated child, I would say, because my birthdays were a thing, from a headband to shoes to socks to ribbons, everything matching, and the day was celebrated. So I was I would say, until 12, I was quite a celebrated child. And, it was a big thing. So November 27, okay, let's get going. So a month before, everybody would set up, and good fun. So like I said, I can divide it into three life-altering incidents which I can segregate now, listen to. One, of course, was why I termed it to be up till 12, because I lost my father when I was 12. And that kind of left me, I can say, angel-less. So, the wings weren't there anymore. The second aspect was when I saw my mother's unswerving commitment towards raising her two children after Papa was gone. And that was also a determining factor for me, because that made me decide that I have to make it in life. I can't leave it, because she was an asthmatic and she used to change two buses to go to her school. And sometimes, you drag along with her. So every time I used to see her taking the inhaler on the bus stand because the next bus was about to come and she was like gathering herself. You don't know, at that moment you're not registering all these things, but they're sitting at the back of your head.
Getting registered.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now when you can contemplate these thoughts, you understand that, that was, so when I saw my mother going through that, I think that pushed me really hard to ensure that I'd be financially independent and stand on my 2 feet really strong. So that was my second aspect. I think the third life-altering event for me was the end of my marriage after 17 years of being in it. And I think that triggered in me, in fact, led me, Kanika, to a stage of elimination. I entered a phase of elimination. I think that's what it did for me.
Okay, elimination is a strong word.
Yeah.
I relate with it on another level as a minimalist. And although I'm sure it still means and leads to the same thing, because it helps me. It's got into my brain and my thought process to a place where I literally pick my thoughts and like, I don't need you. Eliminate. It's tough, but you saying elimination is interesting, and I want to see how you're going to connect it now with everything else. I'm really curious. When we spoke also last time, we didn't speak about it too much.
Yeah.
I actually left it for today. Please, can you throw some light on only the elimination bit when you say phase of elimination?
So when I say elimination, I literally mean it in the sense of deletion, absolute deletion. Not the kind of elimination that you were talking about, which is an informed choice of being a minimalist. No, for me, elimination was deletion.
It was conscious or it was unconscious?
It was situational. Like I said, when I reached that phase of the end of my marriage after 17 years, the elimination came in form of everything slipping out of my hands, literally. So my home was sold, my car was stolen, my funds and friends both vanished.
Funds and friends.
I really don't know what happened, they just vanished. And people I really thought were like friends and like, I think you should decide in your life, what do you want to do? Yeah, we're with you, but there's actually nobody with you. Why I call this as an integral part as an elimination is because what also got eliminated for me in the physical sense was my daughter, Syra. So I had to make a very informed decision, and legally as well, that I had to leave behind Syra if I had to move on into this separation, because I used to travel for work and I don't have a support system where I can, and I travel a lot for work. So where would I leave her behind? And I'm talking about 4 years ago. So she's 14 now. So a 10-year-old, the possibility of leaving her behind all by herself wasn't a very practical decision. And she's staying with her father made better sense at that time, because my mother-in-law was also with him. So there was a affection and grandmotherly, protection with her. So it was a
very tough, informed decision.
Tough, informed decision that I took after I don't know how many,
I'm sure,
months of sleepless nights.
I'm sure.
But that's the elimination I'm talking about, Kanika. But somebody I was talking to like today, and somebody said, how would you have even written the book if this elimination would not have happened in your life?
I know. Like they say, everything, thank God for a few things.
Yeah.
And the most painful ones we end up being the most grateful for sometimes.
Yeah, but more than that, Kanika, I think this phase of elimination is critical for me because it got me to being what we call nirbhav. I became fearless. Two sense of the word. I became fearless because I had nothing to lose anymore. I had nothing. So what do I fear to lose? My biggest possession was my daughter, and I had secured her somewhere. And the other thing that this nirbhav did for me, that emotion of nirbhav did for me, was that it made me surrender. And now I was at a stage where I realized that somebody else is leading the show now for me. I am following some power. I don't know. I'm not a very religious person, but I'm a very spiritual person. And I knew now that I've surrendered. Now you lead me on to where you want to lead me on to.
Do you find liberation in that? In that moment when you realize that...
it comes after a long time, Kanika,
it
because
does.
there is a lot of...
It always
You
comes
leave
after...
behind. Yeah.
It comes after a lot of pain and grief.
Elimination.
That I agree. But what I'm saying is that when that comes, isn't it liberating somewhere where you know, okay, you know what? I surrender. And then somehow life just starts to get on auto mode. Like everything starts to like...
Because you've pushed already so much.
Right.
You've pushed so much. You've tried so hard. And you're like, leave it now.
Yeah.
It's not working. So leave it. You know, and it's like somebody over there saying, well, I told you to leave it.
कब से कह रहा हूँ या कह रही हूँ.
So I said, let's leave it.
So you mentioned the word, I'm going to try and pronounce it correctly. Attraversiamo.
Attraversiamo.
Okay, it's an Italian?
It's an Italian word.
When we spoke, and you have a tattoo.
Yes,
also.
it's right here, left arm.
What does that mean, and what does it mean to your life?
So, I have 7 tattoos on my body, and each one has been etched for a purpose, same purpose, but at different stages of my life. So, I authored this book, but I thought that, so I'm never going to be cremated or buried, or so I hope so. I mean, that's what I've written in my sign off. I donated my body to science, so I'm hoping that when they finally get to, you know, split you up, they have some 7 stories to read. You know, so that's yet another book you give away. जाते ये किताब भी आप पढ़ लीजिए.
I'm an open book, literally and metaphorically. Read me.
Read me. Yes,
read me.
And then they have this Urdu, Farsi, Italian, Spanish, Gurmukhi all over, and, you know, reading it through. So, attraversiamo is an Italian word which means let's cross over. And it means that nothing in life is etched on stone for you. Any time that you want in life, you can say, this is not how I want my life to be.
Yeah. That choice is always present at every moment.
Yeah, and you choose to cross over.
Yeah.
And I think the moment that I decided that my current life is not finable. I'm not going to be this person. I'm not going to be in this hole or this place. I'm not this. So get up. As I often tell my daughter Sarah, chin up, come on.
Yeah.
So I told myself, chin up and let's cross over. I don't know where that other side of the bridge is going to lead me to, but I'm sure this is not where I want to be forever, and I think I want to move on.
I think that led to this.
Yes,
isn't it?
100%.
So
yes.
everybody, this is a book by Anshu Arora, which is called Candid Conversations with Anshu Arora. I have had the privilege to go through 3 or 4 stories. I seriously couldn't read more because I didn't get time. But it is about 11 inspiring stories about a lot of grit and, you know, they're stories about courage, about resilience and grit. Some very, very noted personalities as well, and the stuff that they've been through. I will not name them right now, but some of them, they are like that. So first up, what made you write a book? And how was the process? Like, how did you I mean, is this what crossover meant? Were you always meant to write a book? What happened? Like, what was that moment that you were like, I need to write a book?
So, very honestly, when I was, let's say when I decided to cross over, I only decided. I didn't know where to go.
वही बहुत है.
Yeah.
Decisiveness ही बहुत होता
हाँ,
है.
just
वही तो हो
decided.
नहीं पाता इतनी बार. I just decided.
Yeah.
That's enough sometimes, I
Yeah.
feel like.
So I just decided. And, but in that moment of time when I decided, I was in a very deep, dark place. And I often compare it with the Kola super deep borehole, which is supposed to be the deepest ditch that is. It's about 12,262 meters deep in Russia. And I was that down in my own sense. And I was struggling to look for that one ray of light somewhere, that one ray of light that will tell me, okay, that's the exit. I was searching for that. And I have always been writing. I used to write.
That's your form of expression.
That's my form of expression. Exit, anything. So I always used to write, but I hadn't thought of a book really. But then when I was trying to exit that hole and I saw that ray of light, and that ray of light were a lot of other people who were fighting even bigger battles with an even bigger smile. And I said, what the hell are you fretting about? You know, what is the problem? Look at that person. Look at what that person has lost. Look at what that person has where that person has reached. So you get up. It's okay. So these people, when I met, I realized that it's time for me to pay forward what I had learned. And I realized there could be many more people who may also need that ray of light. Maybe this book can become that light for them. And these are relatable people. These are Googleable people. These are people, when you will read them, I can tell you, honestly, I really feel that when you will read this book, you will feel that this one line, that's happened to me. Or I've experienced that as well. So I thought I should pay forward through that book. So,
and before you move ahead, you told me that this book was the second phase. You actually wrote it and then wrote something and then rewrote.
I rewrote this book.
Can you share it with us? What was that like?
So initially, Kanika, there was a lady who had approached me, and she said that, she said, I can't write, but I can partner with you. And then, all of that happened. So we reached an agreement. However, the goals that she had set for herself were not being met. So I had finished writing this book. My job was to write and submit it to her, and her job was to get that published, or whichever was the next lap of it. So I submitted the book to her, and it didn't work out post that. And then she also reached out to people and said that since I'm no longer in this book, so you are free to withdraw from the book. And many people withdrew. And there I was.
How did that feel?
Elimination again. So
Mera purana yaar, elimination, aa jao.
Yeah, I'm used to it now, right? And I will not say used to it, but I know how to handle it now.
How it feels that, okay, I know you. Yeah, I know you.
Yeah, okay, you're back. Let's talk
You're
about
back,
it.
chalo, theek hai, fir se.
Sure. So,
I'm sorry, but it takes courage, I mean, writing a book is not easy. It's not easy. And right now, it may seem like a dot in time, but at that time, it would have been excruciatingly long continuum of time and space.
Yeah.
And when that happened, it was a bit of, I would say, betrayal of sorts, or maybe trust broken kind of, or whatever you want to call it. It isn't easy. Whatever the person's reasons were, or the people that were involved, their reasons were, I'm sure they were valid. But we are speaking about talking to you right now. Now, at that time, when that setback happened, and that too in chronological order, right after what had happened with you, how did you find the courage to again write, is my question.
I was very sure this book can help.
That was your conviction.
That was my conviction.
Okay.
I was sure if I it's like you've already held on to a rope and you've come out of the hole. You've done it.
Huh.
So you're sure that somebody else can do that too. So, and Kanika, this is your 37th episode, right? There are so many brave stories out there. So what I did again was I said, let's, as they say, somebody's trash is somebody's treasure.
Yeah.
She called it trash. I said, I'll make it a treasure. And I plotted some headers and I said, I'm now looking for these stories. And I just put it out. I started talking to people. Believe you me, Kanika, I did not know any of these people who are in the book, barring one person.
You said they walked into your
They
life.
just walked into my life. And all I was doing was, hey, Kanika, I'm looking for someone on this. Okay, so hey, Preeti, I'm looking for someone on this. Or Manpreet, I'm looking for someone on this. And I said, okay, I read about this person somewhere. You want to reach out? I started tapping everywhere. And I also want to admit very honestly and with all due respect, I interviewed more than 11 people. I interviewed many more than 11. Not everybody made it to the book. Because what you see, what you get, and what actually is
are very different.
It took me sometimes 3.5, 4 hours of conversation to know. Oh, sorry.
I relate to it. I relate with that. I do. Of course, then I don't spend. So, I mean, kudos to you. I don't spend so much time, but you get to know. You get to know the intention pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And once you know, and it's not about anything else. I think it's about your vision. It's about Anshu's vision. Yeah. Now that needs to click. And not to say that everybody, I mean, they need to click with your vision.
Yeah.
So that I understand. Any story that stands out particularly for you or has had an impact on your life?
All 11, otherwise they would not have been there, Kanika. I'd like to talk more about them in detail as we progress.
Okay, all right. I think that is actually my next question. So I've read 3 of the stories and I've met 5 of your story, the people on which the stories are written. Again, I'm asking you, which there would be 1 or 2, chalo, anyone that had an impact. How, like when you were writing, like I know that when I've interviewed 37 people, there are 3-4 that stand out for me individually.
Yeah,
Okay, they had a solid impact on my and not taking away from anybody else.
So I'll put it a little differently here. For me, the aspect is that of the learning that I got from each one of them, right? So it really didn't matter if it was A person speaking or B person speaking. I was more focused on what I was getting from them. So to tell you what resonated most for me.
Yeah.
So if I can just trace it back to the concept of Nemawashi here.
Yes, please.
So what is Nemawashi? So Nemawashi is the science of replanting a tree, or you can say transplanting a tree, right? So what you ideally do is that you have a big tree. We begin by digging around that tree. Or sometimes you clip the bigger roots so that the smaller roots can also grow. By doing that, and you start doing that a little before you're about to transplant or replant that tree. So the tree gets ready. Tree gets ready for the process of transplantation. And in Japanese, Nemawashi also means a very informal process of preparing for a change. So what these people did for me was Nemawashi. Their lives, their stories came around me and they were all digging around me. I was getting ready for this change. And Kanika, sometimes you are not writing the book.
Yeah.
And sometimes
the book is writing you. And for me, this book was writing me. And this process of Nemawashi, of these people coming together, was actually my preparation of my standing tall one more time. So I can tell you 7. You asked me for one. I can tell you 7 aspects that resonated so beautifully with me. So there's one lesson that they said, they defined courage. So I'm sure you all may have had various definitions of courage, right? We all look at various definitions of courage. This gentleman, who's written in the book, said, courage is grace under pressure.
Yeah.
So really, and I am like, exactly, that's what it's all about. How do you respond to a pressure? How do you respond to a stage where there's nothing left and you so want to react? So that conduct in that moment, so grace under pressure, that's true courage. That was my first lesson. So there are 2 mountaineers, Yachin trekkers, people who've traveled to North Pole and, trekked up till there. So there are 2 lessons that resonated there with me, Kanika. One was, they said that you don't have to look at the final summit all the time. You have to look at it camp by camp. So you do one camp, good. Hold on, take a breath. You do one more camp. Hold on, it's okay. It's okay, whatever time it takes. To the same context, another mountaineer said, 40 steps at a time. Take 40 steps. That's it. That's all you got to do. Take 40 steps. And it's done. Nobody's pushing you. But remember to get up and take next 40. And once you keep doing that, you reach where you have to reach.
Here I'll just put in, it's very coincidental. He's not here yet, but I've done Everest Base Camp in 2016-17.
Oh, lovely. Did you do that? How nice.
And the person who took me today, he's not arrived yet, but he is going to be here. Yeah, and he used to say this on the trip to me, to us, the group, that take 40 steps. I think it's a thing, or I don't know what it is, people who trek. When you say, Kanika, relax, and I used to have knee issues, I still have. And he would be like, just this much, then relax. Who's pushing? Why pushing? So, very coincidentally, he's still not here. His name is Samir. Okay. I hope you meet him before you
Yes, I'd love to. I'd love to.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
I think that part, Kanika, was in different walks of life, right? So, moving out, living by yourself, not having your daughter with you. You know that she's a few kilometers away, but she's not with you.
Yeah.
And it's a very tender age, and for a mother to worry who would be doing her hair, And I remember early days, I used to literally feel these, hands coming out of the wall. I used to see her walking in the house, sitting on the sofa on the iPad. I had these visuals flash, flash, flash all the time. And I told myself, okay, 40 steps.
One step. 40 steps. So
40 at a time.
One.
Yeah,
one by one.
40. So that
helped. Huh?
That helped. The other thing, and I want to quote Dilshad here, Kanika, I think it's true for us to hear today. She said, the dots will join. Why are only all of us here today? Only these men. Some did make it for the match. Some still stuck in traffic. But why are only us here? Why did you and I meet? Yeah. Why is this show happening? Yeah. These dots will join someday.
They do. And you live to see them.
You live to see them?
Yes. That dot. Oh, yes. I'm a very big believer of this.
Yes. So that patience and perseverance in that. So when you're in that moment and you're not too convinced that, okay, now it's time to maybe not, hold on. Like I said, go back to the surrender.
Bit.
because the dots will join and you will know why you were put in that place for that period. The dots will join because what that period was to give you, you cannot see now. None of us can, but there is a reason you planted there,
Yeah.
and you shall know. We all shall know. We will know. So the dots join. That was my third lesson. I think when I interviewed this LGBT activist, I'll be honest with you, Kanika, I had prepared this, now you already know my phobia of preparation. So I had prepared this and done all my research. I had prepared this big set of questions. And I'm all set and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to interview this gentleman. And I'm like, okay. I said, so that thing that you said, tell me something about yourself. Or I started with that little icebreaker. And after that, I was shut for 2.5 hours. Because he was so full of angst. He was so full of the fight. He was so full of him fighting for his own identity that I was like, that's the battle. What was I going to ask? I couldn't ask even one question, but what pierced through me, all of us sitting here, we're fighting for very small things in life. Imagine that you have to fight for who you are as an individual. Isn't it even in the physical body?
Yeah.
You're trapped and you're fighting to tell, excuse me, that's what I am. And that fight was so big. And I was like, excuse me, did you say you're not getting a house on rent? It's like,
Yeah.
people are fighting to live in their own body and
it's continuous. And it's not, it doesn't come and go. Like, house on rent nahi hua, to then you move on to the next scenario in your life for the day.
Yeah.
This is continuous.
Yeah.
Like, this is continuous for people who have, these problems. It is.
So the struggle for identity. And you know what, Kanika, it taught me was that, we still don't know. We still need to develop that sensitivity appropriately.
We don't. It's very surface.
Yes.
It's very surface.
Yes.
I will tell you. It is, I don't know. I have interviewed 2 or 3 of them. It's just upper se, very surface. Very, very surface.
Yeah.
One cannot know unless one dedicates a lot of time.
And when Krishna came on the book launch, there's one thing he said that hundreds of people have come and interviewed me. He said that don't even come back to tell me कि आपका article छप गया है. They don't even come back to tell me that. He said, you're the first person who made it to the book. You called me to the book launch. You put my photo in it. And I was like, but that was the promise. He said, but not everybody keeps the promise. And I realized that the fight for identity is bigger. So it made me stop and understand and actually pause to see that somebody could be having a struggle that I can't even visualize.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful line which became my 5th lesson, which is, you're ready when you're baked. You're ready. I don't even have to explain this, So we're like, I was like, okay, you think okay, I'm ready, bring it on. It doesn't come.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we will experience.
Okay, I've done it. Now now I'm ready to start life on this front. Why is it not starting? I've done this. You're not baked yet. But I think I'm baked. Sorry, you're not baked yet.
We can feed that into our ovens also at home.
You're not baked yet. You're not baked yet.
That can be like your,
Yeah.
sound.
And I'm like, so I realized that so it helped me calm down my frustration of non-achievement or even trivial things.
Yeah.
Because when you're transitioning, doing the Attraversiamo, when you're crossing over, you're so impatient.
Yeah.
At least you put that facade of composure. But when you come inside the house, you're walking in the living room
it's
up
like
and
the
down
duck.
and you're so...
The duck. No?
Yeah.
The
And then it's like, okay, you're not baked yet. So
That's a wonderful line to live by. You're not baked yet.
So there's a full chapter titled that you're ready when you're baked.
Yeah.
So that I often remind myself. And I also learned one lesson. So we have grudges. So Kanika and I had some questions, which I eventually said, Kanika, I want to not answer these questions because, Kanika, I learned the science of elimination of communication as well. Not all fights are to be won. And sometimes you may have grudges against some people, but you've already hit the wall. And sometimes that person, by virtue of the age, by virtue of acceptance, by virtue of a relationship that you have, and again, going back to grace under pressure, you choose to not tell what you want to tell because now there's no scope of absorption. It's okay. It's okay. So, yes, to say, the questions I deleted, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, I have a grudge. Yes, I have. Am I not happy? No, I'm not happy. I have a complaint. Yes, I have a complaint. But there's no point now.
Yeah.
I have to learn to eliminate some communication as well in life because everybody talks about the power of communication, what to say. I earn my bread and butter from this, right? What to say, when to say. But there are some complaints you have to just
Let go. Not
let go.
let them be.
Let them be. Because perhaps sometimes even those people at that stage of their life will not be able to help you anymore.
It's true. Nothing will come out of it.
Yeah, and you'll perhaps end up with a little regret. Like, it would have been better if I didn't say it.
It is
I
happening.
may not have hurt this person if I didn't say it. And God forbid if that person is nowadays you can't even say when a person is at a fag end of life.
Yeah.
It's not even age-based anymore.
Yeah.
I think the last one, sorry if it's been a long one for you, but in the book you will find a quadrant. Though that's connected with addiction and various other aspects.
That's a very, very interesting, powerful thing you're going to say now.
Yes.
It hit home.
It hit home and it's about home.
It's about home, yeah.
So this
Very
gentleman
powerful.
that I interviewed, he said that any house or any home, he drew a grid which you can see in the book. Said any home which is either a hotel, like a hotel, like a restaurant, like a zoo, or like a crematorium, will produce children who will be unsettled. So, what's a typical hotel? What do? We go, we take in our room, we go take our bed, we sleep and go. I'm not bothered about if I am in 222, then who's in 223. I don't care who's in 223. If any house works like a hotel, the children will be disturbed. If any house works like a restaurant, right? I go, I get my food, I'm there for the food, I'm there for facilities. I go eat and I come back. I have my head down, I'm eating, I'm done, I've fed myself, I'm going. Will result in that.
Yeah.
A house that's like a zoo where there are cat fights, people fight, they're
Fighting.
aggressive, there is abuse, there's shout, there's loud voice, this disagreement that people don't know how to address. It will produce children that are unsettled. And I'm using a very mild word here, and this unsettlement can have severe repercussions. Yeah.
Yes.
And the last one, which really hit home, was if any house is like a crematorium. A crematorium is with dead silence. Nobody, it's a crematorium. So, dead silence where people don't speak to each other.
Yeah, you said that you go to such houses and people are like, "Kar pe nahi hai kya koi?"
And
You mentioned
Kanika,
that,
can
yeah.
I tell you, I have lived in all of these four. All of these four. And the biggest lesson that this grid gave me, I will never give this to Saira. I committed I promised myself, I will not give this to Saira. Whatever it takes, she will not be a part of this grid.
And Anshu, just adding on, and please correct me if I'm off. This is the assumption here is that this is happening most of the times, because well, let's face it, these kind of things happen in all households. For example, if I'm angry, I will scream, but that does not mean that my home is a zoo.
Yeah.
That needs to be
Understood in the right sense.
Yeah,
Correct.
it needs to be understood what that this means. Of course, please read the book also. But what this means is that is almost a continuum. Like, that's what it is mostly, So that also needs to be.
Yeah, that's the nature of the house.
Yes,
That's the vibe
nature,
of
yeah.
the house.
The essence of the house.
Yeah,
is that.
you're fighting all the
Yeah.
time. People can hear you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. It has to be understood in the right meaning.
Yeah.
So Kanika, that's what the people in the book gave me. And so all these lessons were the digging around that was happening outside this tree. And when I understood these lessons, I think I was ready to cross over. So Nemawashi today that we're talking about, the voice of Nemawashi, therefore, is that life actually prepares you for what it wants you to face. It really prepares you for what it wants you to face. The only thing we need to do is to recognize that you're in that preparation and honor it. I think that's my lesson from these people who came into my life.
No, and it's wonderful. There's a lot of takeaway from the way you explained actually each point, It and why? Because me reading the book and is different. My takeaways will be different from my perception. But you coming here as a speaker and all of us understanding your story, and then you actually speaking about 7 points and how they affect you. Because you're also the author and the book wrote you, and there were people whose stories these are, and you're saying there's a replantation. It brings a whole new color to the whole thing. So thank you for that.
No,
Because for me, it's been different. Couple of them I've already read.
Yeah.
But they brought a new meaning through you.
I'm glad.
So that's amazing. And now I can go and read the other ones as well.
Please.
Thank you. And just saying that she has very kindly gifted our cafe this wonderful book. Thank you for that.
with all
It means
the
a lot. It means a lot. Thank you. Thank you. And one last thing. Thank you. One last thing. Before we wrap up, what would your voice of silence be?
My
To the
voice of silence would be to, like I just said, recognize the events that are happening in your life as a preparation for a better life ahead. And as a preparation for Nemawashi. And that preparation, recognize that Nemawashi that's happening to, because it happens to all of us. It's just that we chose to react to it. I know in this audience also there are some people I know personally who are very bravely handling Nemawashi, and I think that sabr, that patience, that faith and surrender, that's all it takes to truly cross over. And I think that's my voice of silence, which is recognizing the voice of Nemawashi.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kanika. It's been an honor. Thank you. Thank you. Such a
Thank
pleasure.
you so much.
Thank you, everyone.